Hey everyone, welcome to Story Mantra. If you haven't seen Kermit the Frog, now's the time because I have literally been Kermit the Frog for the last 2 weeks. Can you see me? My cheeks are all blowing up, my eyes are popping out. Can you imagine? We have the international best-selling, runaway best-selling author, whatever you want to call her, Alka Joshi on Story Mantra. Like that's just a reason to scream. So I'm going to scream. I have been in love with this book for a whole year. I've been having a romance, a love affair. I've read this book twice. That is a new first time thing for me in the X number of years I've been alive. Because what happened with me was, and I won't hold you back from getting Alka to talk, but you have to hear this. When I first heard of the henna artist, and it's set in Jaipur, for a little girl who was not born in Jaipur, I was born in Bareilly, but who grew up in Jaipur and who still has family there, I always used to hide that I'm from Jaipur because what do I tell people in school? I'm from Jaipur, and they would say, "What is Jaipur?" And I'm like, it's not a what, it's a where. So when I saw the henna artist, I downloaded it immediately. I could not wait because it's set in Jaipur. There's a strong woman from the 1950s who's fighting her way through life. Before I reached the final chapter, I had to read the book again. So I got the hardback. I mean, so literally I read the book back to back. And if you haven't read it, look below the video for the purchase links and also Alka Joshi's links. And that is our author for the day, Alka Joshi.
Yay!
Yeah. And if you don't know, this is a moment in heaven for me. So if I collapse and fall unconscious, I have officially gone to writer heaven. Now you know where to find me.
Thank you, Anju. That's a wonderful, wonderful introduction. I love it.
Oh no, but seriously, if I do, fall off the wagon or something here, just take over for me. So,
Okay.
so my family lives in Jaipur, and they're still living there. Alka, we've had a house in Sea Scheme, a mansion actually in Sea Scheme, ever since my grandfather bought it way back in 1960s. This is shortly after my mom got married into the family, and therefore she was labeled the good luck bride.
Oh,
As Lakshmi and Radha are faced with the situation of bad luck.
yeah.
Um, so this was something that after mom got married in the family, things for the Daga family, that's my maiden surname, began to change and turn around and spiral, all in good ways. So mom was technically good luck. So I'm from Jaipur, but we have our guest here who's from Jodhpur, and Jodhpur is a city very close to Jaipur. Alka Joshi has lived in the US since the age of 9. Her debut novel, The Henna Artist, for those of you who missed it, I'm going to hold it up again, became a New York Times bestseller, a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, an LA Times bestseller, a USA Today bestseller, longlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, a top 10 Goodreads book of 2020, and is being developed for an episodic TV series starring Frida Pinto. Too exciting.
You're such a good host. You should do this for a living. This is great.
Yeah, someone would pay me to. The sequel, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. By the way, I'm reading this book again so that when I read the sequel, I know and I remember everything because my memory is short. That premieres on June 22nd from Mira Books. Currently, Alka is working on the third book of the trilogy. She interviews extraordinary female writers, editors, and filmmakers on her Instagram at Alka Joshi. You'll find all the links below the video. She shares her tips on her YouTube channel. She has a BA from Stanford University and an MFA from California College of the Arts, which all now take a back seat to this huge accomplishment that she's gained. So before I say any more, Alka, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. How lovely to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, I've read the book twice, and I have a million questions to ask you. But of course,
Okay.
There are certain questions which have really, really been hitting me hard. And as I think about it, so first of all, Lakshmi, your protagonist, I love her. She's alive, she's breathing. She doesn't even leap off the page. She dances off the page. She's so graceful. But here's the thing, in terms of her profession, on the one hand, she's painting these beautiful henna images on women's tummy and their body parts for them to have children. And she's preparing special foods from barfi to laddus to all these exquisite delicacies. And on the other side, she is grinding paste, herbs, sages, to propel abortion. How did that happen and how did that come about? They're two extremes.
Well, I think I wanted to present a lot of different kinds of women in the henna artist. So I wanted to present women who desperately want children. Maybe they're not able to have them. Maybe they need to rely on somebody like Lakshmi to help them conceive. Then I wanted to also introduce women who don't want children, like Lakshmi. How do they keep themselves from having children in 1950s? I wanted to introduce women who wanted to work outside the home, like Lakshmi, and others like Parvati, who are perfectly happy with the lives that they have and the power and privilege that they have as married women to two powerful men. And I just wanted to present so many different kinds of women from different social classes. So we have the servant class in here, we have the middle class, and we have the very wealthy. And I wanted to present these women and the different kinds of agency they have. So as women gain more wealth and power, you would think that they would have more agency over their lives, that they could make all of the decisions that would determine their destiny. But that doesn't always turn out to be the case. Even the Maharanis in the henna artists who have power and privilege, they do not have decision-making power over what their husbands decide. And if the Maharaja wants something, like he wants his natural born son to be sent away so he can hire a crown prince from another family outside of the palace, he gets to do that. And the Maharani does not have full stop say so on it.
Well, she goes into depression and nobody is able to pull her out of it. And they're using all these other methods when they know the root cause, but they can do nothing about it.
Yeah, they were even thinking about resorting to a psychiatrist. They were going to take her to Switzerland and take her in a sanatorium and give her over to a psychiatrist to help figure out how she could get out of her depression. But Lakshmi, because of the herbs and savories that she's able to produce, she can get the Maharani out of this depression. And you know what's funny, Anju, is as I was talking to this South Asian group yesterday, all women of all different professions, mainly have grown up here in the United States, or they are like me, immigrants to the United States at an early age. We were all sharing different herbal and organic recipes that we know from our families in India that, are just not known here in the Western world. Like this one woman said, I drink hot water with ajwan seeds every day. And when I run out of the water, I just add more hot water to the seeds and I just drink that all day long. And that's really good for digestion. It's just good for everything in your body, right? And then there's my father, who's always drinking his milk with turmeric every single night. He's done that forever, long before golden lattes at Starbucks were being sold.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think, from our culture, from the South Asian culture, we know so much about natural remedies. And I wanted to bring that out in what Lakshmi is able to accomplish with both her henna and the herbal concoctions that she makes.
So tell me one thing that maybe I missed this in the book, but how does she feel? How does Lakshmi actually feel? And you're the only one who knows this. How does she feel about what she's doing with the two extremes?
I don't think that she takes the time to think about it, because if she did, she may stop one activity or another. I think at the moment, her major focus in the beginning of the book is really about getting enough money together so she can build this house that she has been wanting for so long. She wants a house of her own in the same way that Virginia Woolf really felt that you need a room of your own as a woman in order to just have breathing space, in order to have creative space to do what you need to do. Lakshmi feels that she not only needs a house all of her own so that she can say, I belong, I matter, I have accomplished this with my own wit and my intelligence, and this is a house that I have built myself.
That touches a nerve because that's the same issue I addressed in this book. The debut, which came out early this year, to the Winds of Fire series. It's a woman who has everything, but she has nothing.
Yeah.
And so when I read your book and I read through the fact that Lakshmi is trying to build this house and she's putting the money together, she's got her independence,
Mhm.
and yet it's so hard because it's not at her disposal to do things as she wants, but that's her goal.
Yeah.
Um, and it's this, this desire. I think for me, Lakshmi's desire to have a house is a mark of her independence. Finally, I'm free from all of that.
Yeah. But then there's also a dual purpose. She is hoping that in inviting her parents from the village of Ajer to come and be with her in this house, she
Yes.
is hoping to have forgiveness from them for having left her marriage, for having deserted her marriage 13 years ago. And knowing that such a transgression would have caused them a lot of heartache, would have caused them a lot of bad feelings in the village. So she is also using the house as an atonement of her bad actions from 13 years ago.
Wow. So it's like housing the past within the four walls. That's very powerful. That really is. And, like I said, for all of you who are thinking or haven't read the book yet, each time you read it, you will find something new. There are so many hidden gems in the book, which is why I'm like, I have to read this again before The Secret Keeper of Jaipur launches on June 23rd, is it?
22nd.
22nd. Oh, I'm a delete. June 22nd. There's a lot to gather from Alka Joshi's books because she doesn't just spread a story out for you to jump into. She pulls out strings and threads that tie Indian women down and women of Asia to duties, responsibilities, and mandates that are unspoken, unwritten,
Mhm.
but understood.
Mhm.
That's what I would say. And Lakshmi follows that path throughout the life that she lives. And one of the questions I had for you was the topic of forbidden love.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, that's such a strong topic because here Lakshmi, without giving away the spoilers, but Lakshmi runs away from this abusive marriage with Hari. And
Mhm.
you'd think after what she's been through, she would never be able to love another man again.
Mhm.
And yet she falls in love with Samir. And
Mhm.
it's not in her control. How did that happen?
I think that it started with a friendship, as I think a lot of these things do. She was so focused on having her own business, and Samir helped make that possible for her. Because remember, we're talking about 1950s and a time when women were not supported in wanting to establish their own businesses. They're not supported even in buying their own houses or buying their own land. They cannot do that without a male owner also present on the deed. And so Samir has helped her buy the piece of property that she's building her house on. He helps her set up this business, introduces her to his wife and all of their circle, so that she gets to be the businesswoman that she wanted to be. So it started out, I think, as a business relationship with Samir. Then, of course, they find out that they have, a friendship, and they laugh with each other. They're able to be honest with one another and to really talk very candidly about things in their lives. Like she teases him about the fact that he always has his mistresses, even
Yes.
though he's got Parvati waiting at home for him as his wife. And he teases her about, some of the ways in which she keeps to herself and doesn't let anybody else know more about her. So it starts off with that, and then I think over time that trust develops into something like love for actually both of them. I think they are both a little bit in love with each other.
Well, let me ask you, and again, you would be the only one who knows the answer. Um, Samir has all these mistresses. Lakshmi's providing the herbs to, propel abortion where needed. Does Samir actually fall in love with Lakshmi, or is it just another, just another fling for him?
Oh, I think it goes deeper than just a fling. I think that what he finds with Lakshmi is an ease and an ability to have a friendship with a woman that isn't sexual for the first 13 years or first 10 years of their knowing each other. And so, that's a hard thing to have a friendship with somebody of the opposite sex that
Yes.
has no sexual implication at all. And so I think that he revels in being with this very beautiful woman who is smart and capable, and he really admires so many things about her on that level.
Well, they have so much beautiful banter between them, and
Yeah.
there's so much which is unsaid between
Yeah.
them, you know, in the dialogues, but just the body, the actions, the expressions, you can almost visualize it.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And so that friendship is what made me think, you know, and how did that come to you?
Yeah. And I think, you know, towards the sort of end of their you know, relationship, or their, you know, time together, I think what happens is that they're so comfortable with one another. And Lakshmi, I think, realizes that, or she lets herself fall for him. She has so far been very careful not to show him that she is interested in him, even though he makes some advances every now and then. You know, he tries it on with her every now and then. And she's like, no, because this is verboten in this world, in the world of the 1950s India that I'm in. This is not acceptable. I cannot go to that place with you, a married man, especially one who is married to my biggest client. So, you know, she fends him off for so long. And then when she is the most vulnerable, that's when it catches up to her. That's when she lets her guard down.
Well, that's when the walls break down because she's so broken inside.
Yeah.
You feel for her, you really do. But at the same time, you're thinking, oh, this is 1950s India. You forget today's time. You know, you even right now, that kind of a thing is a no-no. Imagine back then.
Right.
You know, so how did you weave that in to a history of the 1950s in Jaipur when the rules and the structure was so rigid?
Um, well, I think that these kinds of relationships have always existed, whether we have known about them or not, whether we have read about them or not, throughout history. Like, even if you read Tagore from the 1920s to the 1930s to the 1940s, he's always got women and men who are yearning for love, maybe outside of their marriage. He's always got women who are repressed because they don't get to have any agency. And so they look for that agency outside of their marriage, outside of the acceptable social relationships that they're allowed to have. And I think that women like Lakshmi have always existed, and relationships between people like Lakshmi and Samir have always existed, which is why, Anju, I think that there have always been remedies for getting rid of unwanted children, unwanted pregnancies. There have always been those because there have always been liaisons between men and women that were not acceptable to society.
Yep. It's just that, like you said, they're not talked about, they're not highlighted. And so when we read about something like this out in the open, it just takes you by surprise. Like, really, this could happen? And I understand it's fiction, believe me, but it's so real. And it's so impressive, you know, on the heart and the mind when you read the characters, and especially having, you know, every summer we used to go back to Jaipur as kids. So having seen in the 70s what the structure was like, the hierarchy of families and how the foundation was set in stone, the pecking order, so to speak.
Yeah.
There was like, there's no room for any of this. So it really made you think, oh my gosh. But, you know, now when you bring it out that there's so much that was not written, not said, it's like, yeah, there was a lot going on back there. And, you know, I wanted to also ask you, for a lot of our new readers out there who are struggling with their work and their characters and crafting characters, how do you keep a track of your characters? How do you mark their growth? Do they come to you organically? Do you structure it out, engineer your entire project? How do you do this?
My process is very organic. So I start with certain scenes, and then I build other scenes, and then I look for the transition scenes in between those two, that I can thread this whole necklace of scenes together into a whole story. Then I think what happened over time, because it took me 10 years to realize the Henna Artist as a book. So what happened over time is that when I would have other people look at the book and review it and, sort of look for any flaws. Did I drop off a character in chapter 5 that, all of a sudden shows up in chapter 14 and we haven't heard from them in all this time? These kinds of things, these kinds of reviews that you get from people, you learn when you have sort of not gone deep enough into a character. And so they would tell me, I don't understand why Lakshmi wants to build this house so badly. You need to give me a reason for why she's building this house. Why is Radha so desperate to have children? You need to build on her background here to let us know how she grew up and why she feels like she really needs a family. So, so when other people sort of bring these issues out, then you start thinking about your characters a little more deeply and asking the questions, why? Okay, why? Okay, but why? And why not? And that's when you get really deep into your characters and you start building backstories, future stories. You know them about every character. Whether or not they make it into the book is not important, but you need to know each of their stories forwards and backwards so that you can build a very credible narrative.
Well, that's a wonderful way to put it out, that you need to know their backstories, because you honestly do, whether the reader knows it or not, but you do. So since you're the author, tell me about Radha. I love her. There's this, she's the younger sister for sure, but there's this hidden inner strength in her, which is so vibrant, but it's simmering in silence until, of course, it comes out. How did she become such a strong character?
Initially, when I started writing The Henna Artist, I thought Parvati was going to be the antagonist to Lakshmi's protagonist.
Mhm.
And then as Radha entered the picture, she just grew in her power and in her sort of conflicts with Lakshmi. And then I realized, oh, it's not Parvati who's the antagonist here. It's Radha who's the antagonist. That was something that I learned as an author as I was going along. And so then I had some narrators, and I think even my literary agent, who said, you know what, you need to explore Radha a lot more, because I don't understand why she's looming so large in this book. And then I had to really think about, okay, what does Radha want in her life that's different from what Lakshmi wants? Where is their conflict coming from? They do have a 17-year age gap.
Mhm.
And then I realized, oh, okay, so Lakshmi is already 30. She's already learned how to get along in society. Radha is 13, so she is more of a kid, and she's a kid who hasn't had a lot of parental guidance. So she's actually, just in terms of maturity, she's even younger than 13. Because nobody has told her, this is how you should dress. You should keep your fingernails clean. You should, make sure that your hair is nicely done every day.
Well, Lakshmi becomes her mother.
Yeah.
Instantly, overnight, she becomes her mother.
Yes. Overnight, that's what Lakshmi thinks she needs. Lakshmi thinks that, Radha has come into her life almost as a stand-in for her mother, who was supposed to have joined her at the house, right? And so she thinks, okay, so maybe I am meant to be Radha's mother. I'm going to treat her like she's my child. Well, Radha's not having any of that, because she didn't want a mother. She wanted an older sister. She wanted to go to the movies. She wanted to go shopping for dresses and just have fun with somebody. She didn't want to be, treated like a kid, because I think she felt, look, I've raised myself to the age of 13. My parents really checked out a long time ago. So how dare you treat me as if I am just still a kid?
Wow. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of this session. But do join us again. And thank you so much, Alka. We will have Alka Joshi again with us next week. And yes, I will still be just as excited then as I am now. It's way too exciting when you finally read a book that speaks to you and the women you've seen grow up your entire life in your mother's generation, and you understand things in a different perspective. It's an eye-opener. So thank you so much, Alka, for being on Story Mantra, for educating us on your books and also on the process. And we will see you again next week. And if you haven't bought a copy, you know what to do. Amazon link is below. Alka's website link is below. Just click. And if you want to know how much the power of her story means to me, The blog link is below the YouTube video as well. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Alka. We'll see you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.